Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm just going to give it about 15 seconds to make sure that everyone's in and ready to go. But we're delighted to have everybody with us this morning for this really exciting and interesting webinar. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to join us. We're confident we're going to leave you some value here today over the next hour. So we are talking about AI advisory and human advantage, and really why the future of accountancy isn't AI versus humans. It's actually all about what we call human first advisory. And as we go through the session, we'll drill in a little bit in terms of what all these terms mean, or certainly what they mean to us. But I mean, the context for this is that we're living in another of the great shifts that our profession is seeing. Everybody will be seeing every week, probably every day, somebody talking about what they're doing on LinkedIn with AI and how AI is going to do tax returns and bookkeeping and forecasting and all of this stuff at the push of a button. Alongside that, we've got banks introducing bookkeeping technology and suggesting that our clients can use their banking apps to do all of the things that we're doing for them. The spoiler is, no, they can't. We have a really valuable role to play here. And that's really the theme of today's session is when we think about the impact that AI is going to have, and don't get me wrong, AI is going to have a significant impact, as we'll explore today, but it's thinking about how we need to evolve what we do, because really the future is about firms that are using AI to create efficiency and create capacity to do the things that technology will never replicate. And that's our ability to add a layer of human understanding to what we do. So that's really what we're exploring today. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. Apologies if you've come here to get a whole bunch of everyday use cases of AI. Yes, we're going to touch on where we think AI is going to add value, but fundamentally this is about the antidote, if you like, to AI to a degree in terms of making sure that we remain relevant as a profession. So going to do some quick introductions. Firstly, anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Will Farnell. I am a partner at TC Group. I set up my accounting firm in 2007. We joined TC Group last year. We were one of the first 100% cloud practices globally back in 2009. And over the course of the last 8 years, I've written 2 books. The first was a digital firm, second was a human firm. And I'm working with a team all in place as Chief Commercial Officer on a fractional basis. And it's been a really interesting kind of 14 months working with the team all in place, building out our solution, which we will touch on just at the end of the session today. But more importantly, I'm joined by Donna and David today, so I'm going to let them do some introductions. Donna, over to you first.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming today. I'm Donna Beddis. My practice is called The Accountant's Best Friend. I'm based down in Eastbourne on the South Coast, and I also work with other accountants and bookkeepers and do a little bi-weekly meeting called Confessions of an Accountant, where we talk about all kinds of fascinating stuff like this. So I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Thank you, Donna. And David, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm David Clarke, one of the 2 directors and shareholders of Hicks Co, what I'd call a traditional practice on the south coast in Gosport, just across the water from Portsmouth. I've owned my 50% for about 8 years now, and it has been a bit of a journey, and one that has gone very much from sort of compliance to getting to know clients better, which obviously we will touch on in the next 50 minutes or so.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. So very briefly, before I turn the slides off and we get into some conversation, this is a plan for the session. So we've done some welcomes. I've kind of started to set the scene. So I'm going to start off in a moment, just getting David and Donna's views around our world of compliance and advisory as it exists today. What do we mean when we talk about advisory services? What do we mean when we talk about compliance? I've kind of preempted where this conversation is going because I've talked about the changing face of compliance. compliance. I remember back in 2009 talking about the death of compliance because cloud accounting was going to revolutionize the world. Here we are. Most firms are still delivering most of their revenue via compliance services. That isn't going to change. It's not going to go away, but it is going to be different. And that's kind of what we said 15 years ago as well. So we'll explore that. We're going to talk about what AI could do and why that's good news, because there's this fear of AI, but the reality is that actually AI can be our friend and really help us think about doing things differently. And really the crux of the session today is when we recognize what AI can do, what opportunities does that create for us in terms of this thing called the human advantage? And we will have time for Q&A. If you have any questions in terms of housekeeping, pop them in the Q&A box and we will pick those up. We've got Claire in the background keeping an eye on that for us, but we will pick up any questions at the end of the session. So that is a plan. I'm going to take the slides off now and we're going to kick into the crux of the conversation here. So I said we'd start with the idea of our world of compliance and advisory. If we think about those two terms, we'll talk about definitions in a moment, but most firms, and Donna, you talk to lots of accounting firms, I get the benefit to talk to lots of accounting firms. Most firms remain compliance-led. So we've been talking about the need to do more advisory for as long as I can remember. And it's no big surprise that we are still compliance-led given everything that we have to do. And we couldn't do a webinar at the moment and not talk about MTD as another example of where we are being driven to do more compliance. So when we think about this ongoing conversation we have, why do we think firms have struggled to move beyond such high levels of compliance-led service delivery? So that's a broad question for both of you in a moment. But before we answer that one, compliance for me is everything that we do that relates to filing something that HMRC or Companies House need. Advisory is anything that isn't that. But in terms of you, what does it mean to you? David, come to you first when we talk about advisory, just so people know what we're talking about. What is advisory to you?
Yeah, I think advisory, pretty vast spectrum and what it can cover. I think it's probably impossible to do compliance without actually doing advisory. It's just probably been done at the wrong time in a lot of cases.
Or for free.
Yeah, or for free. You're too late, or it'll only apply for next year or whenever. So yeah, that's but I would agree with your definition that advisory is anything that isn't compliance, which is basically your HMRC and your Companies House pension stuff.
Yeah. And Donna, what does it mean to you? You talk to lots of firms. What do they tell you advisory means?
Well, it's basically exactly what it is what they have to do. It's not what they choose to do. It's not necessarily what they plan to do, what they have time to do. It's you must file this by this deadline, and if you don't, there'll be fines, penalties, and interest potentially. So a lot of the focus goes into just getting by with what we have to do. And I think a lot of clients' perspective is they have an accountant for compliance. And that's how perhaps other consultants and business advisors get brought in, because they don't realise the accountant could potentially do more than that.
Yeah, and is that?
I think in a lot of respects, especially as firms start to grow, they spend less time thinking about how they're taking care of their current clients and more about the growth. And the growth just means maintaining the compliance at a level which you can keep everything filed and up to date. And as long as we're doing that and we're bringing in more clients, we're doing more compliance, and you lose a bit of a track. I mean, everyone starts out and everyone says, oh, I want to do this to be just a compliance-only accountant. We all want to help the client. But what does that actually mean? And I think in a lot of ways along the journey, some accountants can lose their way of how helping someone actually.
We get too busy, don't we? In terms of too busy on filing the things that have to be filed. And I think what I see when I talk to firms and work with firms is that the scale bit is the problem, and we continue to focus on being an accounting practice rather than an accounting business, and we don't think commercially, and that just creates challenges for us where we just become busy fools, and therefore we lose sight of the things that we set out to do, that we know we should be doing. And your point about kind of people pulling other advisors, because so many times people say, oh yeah, my clients don't want to buy anything else, they just want to buy compliance. But it's the challenge, isn't it, that this is what we need to be doing. So the poll has popped up, I was just going to suggest that we jump into first poll. We've got 3 polls for you today. This is the first one. So hopefully you can see the poll on your screen. The question is, what do you believe is the biggest threat to accounting firms over the next 5 years? So if you can click on the answer now button that should be on your screen, and tell us what you think, and there may be others. If there's others, pop it in the chat for us. Tell us what else there might be here, but we wanted to kind of focus on these 4 areas. So do pop in your answer on that poll for us. So we've got, hopefully once you've answered, you can see some results. And interestingly, given we're talking about AI and everything else, the number 1 result at the moment, and if you haven't answered, please do. 37% say AI replacing accounting work. 42% now saying AI replacing accounting work. Talent and succession. I mean, these are really interesting because we're talking about AI replacing accounting work. That might have a knock-on effect to the talent and succession challenges because the type of people we need may change when AI perhaps does more of the work. And we're going to come on to kind of what we think AI might do and where we should be focusing our efforts around AI. And at the end of the session today, I'm going to share a QR code for the next webinar that we're going to do in this series in September, where I'll be talking with Alexis Kingsbury, who has recently released the book called Intentions, having built an 100% AI accounting firm. So Alexis and I are going to be talking about this idea of talent, people development, and the roles of accountants in an AI world. So I'll share a code for that later on in session. So thanks for doing that poll. 40% of attendees are saying that there is a fear of AI replacing accounting work, and we'll come on to that and talk about that in just a moment. David, I mean, just going back to the first point there before we get into the next section, I kind of said, why do we think firms have struggled to move beyond high levels of compliance? What do you think are the barriers here? What are the things that are stopping firms doing it if everybody's telling us that we should be doing it? And at the same time, people are saying, yeah, I really want to do more advisory, but they're just not making it happen.
I think it comes down a lot to confidence. And the compliance work safe. It's sort of a bit of a comfort blanket in terms of fee income. It's regular, predictable, relatively easy to get. The actual work follows rules, the accounting standards. It's and that kind of plays into the stereotypical accountant who is introverted and just likes to sort of stay in their lane and do a good job and then move on to the next one. Obviously, advisory, having conversations, maybe get into a bit more personal with clients. That takes a slightly different skill set and something that maybe people just aren't sort of comfortable or that confident with. Although I think most accountants are absolutely brilliant at it, and they do it. It's just they just haven't got that confidence. That's what I put it down to.
Yeah, and so thinking about the poll there. So we asked, what do we believe the biggest challenges are over the next 5 years? And they're all kind of linked. So AI replacing accountancy work, that in turn is going to have fee pressure and commoditization of the compliance work that we're doing. If AI is doing more of the compliance, are we at risk of losing relevance for clients? So all these are really valid, aren't they, in terms of what we're doing? But when we think about, from your perspective, when we look at the profession today, what do you think that we're going to see AI kind of replacing over the next 5 years? What parts of our work do we think we're going to see AI taking a grip on? Donna, what's your thoughts on that?
I think basically the initial wave is going to be those jobs that potentially trainees do, because the theory behind them is relatively simple. So if you can create the theory behind them into a rule, then a computer can follow it. So anything that, A plus B equals C can be fed to a computer, can be auto-generated. So that they're going to be the first wave to go. Anything that goes beyond that has to take in external considerations or potentially different scenarios, that's going to be more difficult for the AI to be able to imitate. So whilst the low-level jobs might be easily sucked in, and that could be a relatively quick progression, I think anything above that takes almost an extra layer of thought or perhaps some personality or other consideration, that's going to be much harder for the systems to imitate.
Yeah. And David, you're doing a fair amount with AI in your firm, which we'll talk about in a while, hopefully. But I mean, where do you see the risk areas in terms of what we're doing as a profession at the moment?
The risk areas, I suppose, besides, obviously
where do we think AI is going to jump in and kind of potentially have either the biggest positive impact or even kind of negative impact, I guess, in terms of what we're doing at the moment?
Okay, yeah. So, I'm hoping, like it already has done, I assume sort of everyone is using AI to some extent. But at the moment, it is able to obviously replace your monotonous tasks that no one actually wants to do. And I think as people understand how to communicate with AI, and obviously the models and things get better, that they can take more more of any of that work. I think, like Donna said, a computer and AI will be able to really do anything. You can tell it and explain it in specific steps how to do. Whether it's worth it is another matter.
Yes.
But so I think, and I would say ideally, if you can get it to do, someone else to do more of the boring stuff, so you can do the interesting stuff that makes a difference. Well, great.
Yeah. And I mean, just for people listening, if anybody hasn't read the work that Lucy Cohen's doing at the moment around the way that AI is going to have an impact on UK tax gap and things like this, in terms of the way that a lot of the AI tools that are being pushed to accounting firms at the moment, working in a way that it uses something called probabilistic AI. So it's basically a learning process, and it makes assumptions rather than a deterministic approach to AI, which is where there's following a set of rules. Lucy's done some amazing work on her doctorate, and some of the research there is really interesting. So I think that there is so much still to work out here in terms of where we can comfortably use AI and safely use AI. Having said that, clearly we need to be aware of what's going on. And referencing Alexis Kingsbury again, Alexis said that we should be both excited and worried about the impact of AI in equal measure. And I think that's a really good way of kind of positioning at the moment, in terms of, yes, we should be curious. Yes, we should be excited by the opportunities, but equally there needs to be enough concern. Go and look at this stuff and see what's happening. I regularly quote some research from McKinsey that said 70% of everything we do in work today we're not going to be doing by 2030, which is phenomenal. So 70% of everything you do in your working day today, you won't need to do in 4 years' time. I mean, that's worrying. Of course, the optimist in me says, wow, 70% of time back to do some amazing things. And that's what we're going to talk about in a moment. So, David, if we think about this, historically, compliance work has kind of been the anchor, if you like, of the client relationship. So if we expect that compliance is going to become largely automated, because we've talked about these are things where we're doing things repetitively, A plus B equals C, what happens to firms that continue to rely wholly on compliance? What happens to the relationships?
Well, I think if you're a firm that relies completely on it, I think the worst case scenario is you just don't exist anymore, because there probably won't be, there won't be sort of work to do. But realistically, I think you will end up, putting this in the nicest possible way, you'll attract a certain type of client that brings with it a certain type of fee pressure that isn't particularly fulfilling to work with, and you'll just become harder to sort of distinguish from any other firm doing the same thing, which obviously feeds into that sort of fee pressure piece.
Yeah, and following on from that, Donna, if we know that lots of accountants clearly seem to be worrying about AI, and Alexis said we should be worried about AI, and worrying about the devaluing of what we do, and that kind of came through a little bit in terms of the fee pressure, commoditization. So is the real risk here, though, is it AI, or is it a fear that we become commoditized in terms of what we do? What do you think on that?
I think as you said, there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of threat from AI. And I think if everybody just steps on the same path of sticking to compliance, do what you need to do, they're always going to design a computer that's going to do it quicker or faster than you can and cheaper. And it's a race to the bottom. And that's where none of us want to be. Personally, I think we've got to distinguish ourselves by being as my firm is the accountant's best friend, being that best friend in business to our clients, which means knowing them, and it means being able to give them advice that's based on actually their situation, not just generic, but FRS blah 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 says that. Nobody cares about that. They care that their accountant is their trusted advisor, and to be that, you've got to know them. And it's a bit like having a best friend. Yes, you can meet a new friend who might have a nicer house or might bring better wine to the party. But actually, your best friend's always going to be your best friend because of how well they know you, what they've been through, what they've helped you through. And that's where the value of actually having a proper relationship with your clients, be it to give them advisory and everything else, is going to completely set you apart. And there's no AI that's going to be able to replicate that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is very similar to when I wrote The Human Firm in 2023, which was my second book. I kind of started that with the idea that, look, there's a level playing field. The book before that was A Digital Firm. So I said that the playing field's level. We can all go out and buy the same tech. We can all use the same tools. I did enough webinars about the processes that we use in our firm. So everything was easy to replicate. Anybody could have replicated what I'd been doing in my firm. So the point of difference that we had for a very long time, which was the way we use technology, kind of disappeared. And actually, the only point of difference became people. It was either the way that our team were, the way that we worked with our team, or more importantly, the way we worked with clients and the way we focused on clients. And I think we're at that point again. I mean, I wrote that book 3 years ago and it feels more relevant now than it did 3 years ago. But this is the point. Now it is all about these relationships are going to become the differentiator. So it's going to be the conversations we have. It's going to be what we understand about our clients and their objectives that are going to set us apart in a world where everybody can use the same AI to effectively do the compliance work for them. What I'm hearing though is that where we're likely to go is that we're going to need to spend more time on review, because we know AI gets stuff wrong. This is Lucy's point in terms of if you use probabilistic AI, it's probably right, or in Lucy's words, it's probably wrong. So therefore, how do we make sure that we focus on making sure we have review processes in place? So there is still key role that we have in terms of oversight and picking up the nuances of what we see. Compliance is changing. We've kind of said that there is concern here based on that first poll that we are concerned about AI replacing some of our work, that's going to drive to fee pressure and commoditization, and that there is a risk that we lose relevance with clients. So the key here is that we've got to ensure that we don't lose relevance with clients. We've got to make sure that we use the capacity we create to have better conversations, better relationships. So let's shift into the next bit, which is really around what could AI do, what can AI do, and why is that good news? So to start that, question for both of you, is there a task that you spend loads of time on at the moment that you have either replaced with AI, or you sit there and think, God, I wish AI could do that for me? Donna, go on. Anything that you have to do at the moment, you think, this is such a bore.
Well, do you know what? And it is the most basic thing ever. And I'll probably be shot down for saying it, but I find it fabulous for helping me compose an email, especially one where it's got maybe a lot of technical data and to you it makes sense, but it's the layout, it's the clarity. So I will feed it all the information. I've trained it very well to use my tone of voice, and please don't be a grey-suited accountant because that won't match. They'll know it's AI. But the amount of time I used to spend typing up an email, rereading it, restructuring it, trying again, maybe even getting somebody to second proofread it, to me, to be able to go, right, this is and be able to say it all however I want to, and it comes up as a beautiful email. I might still go, well, I wouldn't use that phrase and I'll take that sentence out, and or you've kind of got the gist of that bit wrong. It's never like you can just press go. But the amount of time I save in just getting that initial first draft done and then I can tweak it is incredible.
Rough guess. How much time do you reckon that saves you? That task saves you a week?
I sat down and I worked out it was about 6 hours a week.
6 hours a week. So that's almost a day a week, isn't it? So that's 20%. So when you take McKinsey's stat that I mentioned a moment ago, 70% of everything we do in work today, we're not going to be doing in 2030. Already at the early stages, really, of AI, you've saved about 20%.
Yeah, even with the most basic use case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the point. And I think it's really easy. You hear stats like that and you think, oh my word, like our world is ending. But so much of what we do is admin. It's really basic stuff. And that 6 hours a week is now 6 hours you've got to do something far more valuable. That you spend an hour talking to a client. That's 6 clients a week that you can talk to for an hour and add real value. This is the opportunity.
It's the same as the computerized accounting systems. Who actually really want to be an accountant? I can sit there and write up books, realize I've got things wrong, rub them back out. No, it's just a natural evolution that takes out a job that isn't so enjoyable and gives you more time to do something more.
And just to put some reality again on this for people that are like genuinely really concerned about this, you've just made that point about kind of basic cloud accounting automation. People that have heard me speak know that I have a view around adoption in the UK, which is really, really low. This is stuff that we've been doing for 16 years, and there are still tons of firms, probably 80% of firms, that are still not doing it right. They're still not using basic automation. Euro's own research says bank feed adoption is 40%. So, but this is a point, isn't it? And we've got AI, and everyone's saying AI is going to do everything. We've got 60% of people that are manually uploading bank statements into Xero. So, like the flip side of looking at this is that if you focus on this stuff and you identify the opportunities, you are top quartile. You are going to win. And that's the point here. This is about creating competitive advantage, creating differentiation for you in your firm. That's the opportunity. Sorry, I digress. I have a habit of doing this. David, same kind of view to you. Is that it's something that you were spending loads of time on, or you are spending loads of time on, and you think, it'd be great if I could get rid of this with AI?
Well, I think to touch on the compose and emails part, I use Whisperflow AI to dictate emails and internal Teams messages, things like that. And that saves, I reckon it's easily 2/3 of the time. Because it's obviously just so much easier to talk. It's very natural. And then, either, I must admit, I haven't done this yet, you could either get your Claude or whatever to refine it, or you can just refine yourself. So, I mean, to get these things to actually sound like you, I spent probably an hour with Claude feeding it my historic emails, things I've written, to then it knows how I phrase it, how I write, all that sort of stuff, and actually then fed what it produced from sort of almost from scratch, from an idea or some stuff that I'd talked to it about, fed it into one of these. Is this an AI generated article? 100% not. It's written by a person. So I think you can sort of there's sort of use cases like that. I mean, to touch on stuff that I'd actually like it to be able to do, because I don't think anyone or any software has really nailed this yet, is capacity planning or calendar planning. I spend still probably the first, I don't know, I dread to actually think, it's probably an hour a day organising my day. That might well be because I'm taking care of team members and just overseeing jobs, etc. If something could nail that, that would be great. It must be possible, but
Yeah, absolutely. So Dave, question for you, because I know you're doing some work around this at the moment. So if we think about AI, everyone says they can produce reports, they can do forecasts, make recommendations. If AI can do that, what impact does that have on our role as accountants going forward? So when Claude can Xero have got their partnership with Anthropic now, and they're saying you can go in and say, right, tell me what's going on in my business. If we accept that all clients are going to do this, where does that leave us? What's our role in that process?
I think for starters, it makes us more important, because anyone who has spoken to a client over the last, I've been an accountant for 18 years. I would say probably 5% of clients actually understand a profit and loss and balance sheet. The basics of accounting reports. And it has always been, I've always viewed it as my role to then talk a client through it. What do things mean? Why do banks care about ratios, or what does this mean, net assets, whatever it might be, well, that's just going to change to more reports. Just because there's more doesn't mean they're going to be better. We still need to interpret them. We still need to check that what's been fed into them is right and what's coming out of it is useful. Translate it. I mean, accountancy is effectively a different language to the lay business person. So I think really that's that's it. We're just not going to have to spend so much of the time producing either the input or the report. We can just do the good part of talking to the client and actually helping them understand their business.
Yeah, so I think if we kind of summarize that, it's we're adding context, we're interpreting the data, we're making judgments on the data, and ultimately we're providing some accountability to what's going on. And it's interesting. I was at Accountex and we talked about the zero anthropic announcement. And on a couple of sessions, I kind of threw the question out and said, like, if your clients now had access to this and they went into Claude and said, tell me who owes me money, how accurate do we think the answer would be? The reality is probably that in 5% of cases it'd be right, because most people wouldn't have reconciled the bank account. So therefore the debtors aren't going to be right. And yes, there's an argument, well, AI does the bank rec, but does it? And does it get it right? And does it need oversight? And does it need review? Of course it does. So there's still an element of, we still need to make sure that clients are using good data, because clients will believe whatever they get told, won't they? And this is where having that understanding and having that conversation is kind of really, really important. So quickly for you, Donna, I think the question I kind of set to you is, if two firms have got access to the same AI tools, where does competitive advantage come from? But we can broaden that. If all firms have got access to the same AI tools, where does competitive advantage come?
Again, it's going to go back to the relationship you have with your client. You've either got two choices. You've either got to be the cheapest accountant on the block. So that means cutting every meat right down to the bone of can we work remotely? Do we have to pay? Can we outsource? To try and be the cheapest chips accountant, which who set out in business to be as cheap and nasty as they could? Nobody. Or who wants to actually see through the initial ambition of becoming the accountant and working with that client to help them achieve their life's ambitions? And I think that is 100% without a shadow of doubt the way you stand out. If your client knows you're their go-to person, you're their everything, they're basically their husband or wife in business, they're going to come to you, and no amount of discounting from another firm or we've got a shiny new AI is going to take them away from you, because the trust is there, and that's what they built the whole relationship upon.
Yeah, absolutely. Which takes us quite nicely into the main crux here of kind of this idea of the human advantage. So before we do that, we're just going to launch another poll for everybody. So you should see a poll pop up in just a second. There you go. There it is. So if you picked one of your top 30 clients at random, could you tell me, could you identify for yourself their biggest personal or financial priority for the year ahead? So pick one of your top clients randomly. Could you say that you could confidently tell me what their biggest priority was? Could you probably tell me? Could you only for some clients, or no, not really? What do you think? The poll is running at the moment. Only for some clients is in the lead, 46%. 23% yes, confidently. Not a question you need to answer because you've already answered. But if we said for all of your top 30 clients, what would the answer be then? Would that change? Because I think that's the point. It's you'll have some clients that for you've worked with them for so long, and just because you've worked with them so long, you've kind of got to a sense of where you are. This kind of data fascinates me, because I'd love to know the 27% that have said yes confidently. What sort of firm are you? Are you a sole practitioner? Because we talked about this earlier in terms of the challenges of scale. Everyone starts off and says, yeah, I'm going to know all my clients, and that's great. And I did that. And then we grew, and then I lost sight of the clients because I had too many, had to rely on other people. And I think genuinely that kind of got lost in translation a little bit. So thank you for everybody for voting on that. If we're done, it's 47% say only for some clients, which I think is probably reasonable. Again, it comes back to those few clients that you just have such a close relationship. You talk all the time about what they're trying to achieve and what they're doing. But why do they get special treatment? Because if that's a valuable outcome, then how do we think about building a process and a system that lets us be able to do that for all of our clients? Or at least the 50% that we know will value it, because we've all got some of those clients we've talked about that just want compliance. And as much as I challenge people on that, we've got them, people that are effectively creating employment rather than creating a business, and they will have different expectations. That doesn't mean they won't have financial priorities. So it's still important that we understand that, even if that doesn't mean that we end up delivering additional work for them. So thank you for doing that poll. We've got one more to do right at the end. So thinking about this concept of human advantage, business owners don't make business decisions based purely on logic. They're emotionally driven. And interestingly, TC Group are launching some research today. We did a survey across 1,500 business owners. Really interesting insights. So keep an eye on social and things and take a look at that research. But what we got from that is a recognition that business owners feel they can no longer make long-term planning decisions. The decision cycle is much shorter windows. Actually, the way that we've traditionally delivered financial services no longer meets that need. Because if they've got to make decisions in the moment, data that at best is quarterly, therefore 3 months out of date, doesn't help business owners make the decisions they need to. So some really interesting findings come from that. We're talking about AI and what AI can do. And yes, AI can help us analyze data to help us think about opportunities for clients. But AI doesn't know. AI doesn't know the fears, the ambitions, the family pressures, the personal goals, the life circumstances that our clients have that have to be factored into the advice that we give them and the way that we support them achieving their goals. And in the Human Firm, I talked about the idea of moving from KYC to RKYC. So moving from know your client to really know your client. So if we think about that as a benchmark in terms of, I believe that we should really know our clients. And that goes beyond AML and what's their risk profile and where does their money come from and everything else. Really knowing our client. When do they want to pay their mortgage off? When do they want to retire? Do they want to send their kids to private school? All of these kind of conversations. So to both of you, when we think about this concept of really knowing your client, what does really knowing your client actually mean? As we are here in 2026. David, you've just come off mute because I've had a little buzz. So I'll go to you first.
Okay. Well, I think it sort of means what it's always meant. I just don't think we as accountants have always done it. But for me, it's finding out why. It's always getting to the bottom of, why.
Why?
Why? And I know it's a bit like, I've got a 3-year-old, and that's the phase we're going through now is, but why? But actually, there's a lot that can be taken from that. And I say it to clients, I say it to the team. Why is the client, why do they do what they do? What are they trying to achieve? What are their personal goals? What are their values? Mindset, all this sort of stuff. Because unless you kind of know that, then you can't, it's horses, of course, isn't it? You can't advise someone if you don't know really the bottom line, underlying thing of either what's driving them and like you say, paying off a mortgage. I've got some people where they had, they're sort of in their 40s, and the guy was just so, I think he'd paid off his mortgage, but they needed money, but he was just so against getting another mortgage. But it's a deep-rooted thing from his parents and whatever, and some real sort of serious baggage with it. I think without doing that and sort of getting to the bottom, and almost sometimes you've got to be a bit invasive, I suppose, a nice way, but you've got to get to the real, dig deeper and deeper. Otherwise, I think you won't truly be able to help someone. But when you finally get there, you will be so much better as an advisor. But I think you'd be a lot more, empathetic, I suppose. Because you can sort of start to understand why they do what they do. Humans are odd folk, aren't we?
And I mean, everyone I talk to kind of agrees that, we should absolutely really, really know our clients, but we generally don't. So, Donna, why do you think this is? Why? And even when we say we accept we should do it and we want to do it, what are the barriers? What are people scared about, do you think?
No one wants to come across as nosy. There's the the old-fashioned thing, you go to your accountants for compliance. So yes, they're going to want to know my income, my expenditure. That's it. Why would they ask me about my mortgage? Why would they ask me when I want to retire? Why would they ask me how much I need to live on, or how old, if I have children or a partner and things like that? It feels like a shift that for some accountants, they might find it hard to explain. Well, I'm asking to help you. But I think the same way you need to explain a balance sheet and a profit and loss to them, you need the information of what their ambitions are to almost help them unpick where they are in life and what they're thinking they're achieving. Because so many people go around saying, I'm a business owner, I've got an asset, and when I retire, I'm going to sell my asset. And you go, okay, well, let's draw it back a bit. You're an electrician, you have nobody working for you, you're highly skilled and greatly experienced. Your client book work with you because they know you and they trust you. But how can you sell that? You're a business operator, and unless we work out a way to change this business so there's a succession plan, or maybe staff to bring in, or you're not going to have an asset to sell. It just doesn't work that way. And so I think we need to be comfortable in why we're asking the questions, and explain to them that we need to know the information in order to be able to help them achieve these ambitions they've got in life, and make sure that they aren't under any kind of misillusion as to what's going to be possible based on their current circumstances.
Yeah. And that all starts, though, doesn't it, with understanding what they're trying to do and having a conversation. So, Donna, I mean, kind of gave a bit of an example there anyway, but when you sit across from a client making a major decision, I mean, what are the things that are important in that conversation that we just won't find in a set of accounts?
I think you've got no context in a lot of cases. So a client may say to you, I want to be a 6-figure firm, or I want to be a 7-figure firm. And you go, okay, but why? And what does that mean to you? And actually, is it all about money? Is it because you want security? Or is it because you want to be able to pass on wealth to your family? Or is it because you want to give your children opportunities you didn't have? And until we kind of get that kind of context, you're never going to read it from a set of accounts. You're never going to guess it, because no two people have the same aspirations in life. And that's why I think you need to go that extra step further and make sure that they can really quantify and clarify in their head why they want what they think they want. And if indeed what they want today is going to be the same as what they want maybe next year or in 10 years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, let's just think a little bit about what the focus is for firms now. So if we've got a client that can get their tax return done by a bank or a software platform or whatever it is we're being told in terms of, hey, you're not going to need an accountant anymore because your bank can do it and Xero can do it and QBO can do it, whatever. Why should people still choose to use an accountant? Like, what's our saving grace here?
Well, we are who we are. We know what we know, and that should be, and hopefully is, a lot more than just a bank reconciliation or a balance sheet. It's the fact that we have the interpretational skills to be able to say, yes, but what does that mean? We have the insight to be able to not only look backwards, but also forwards. And we can tie back their ambitions to their actual achievements and say, well, are you on target? We can hold them accountable. I mean, there's very few platforms I've seen where they go, okay, so you were planning to make 20% net profit this year. You didn't. You won't. You'll get ChatGPT and go, great try, good job. Let's go again next year, shall we, and hope for better. And it is a wing and a prayer.
Yeah. David, what's your thoughts on this? Why should people still, or why do we think people will still choose to rely on an accountant when arguably they could get it done for free by their bank or their software platform?
I think, well, actually, it's interesting you say choose those two options, because I think it comes down to trust. And I mean, banks, no one trusts them. I don't know if anyone trusts software companies really either. So yeah, maybe that's not quite so bad. But I think it comes down to two things with trust. One, that clients don't want to get in trouble, so they want a real person keeping them safe. And Claude's not going to jail for bad advice. So Claude, or the AIs will openly say, when you question it, and as an accountant you might use it, think, well, that's not right. How about this? Oh yeah, I made it up. So I think that's sort of the first thing. They don't want to get in trouble. I think the other thing is business is quite lonely. It's quite a lonely place, or can be.
Very much so.
So they want to know they're sort of not alone. Someone's in their corner. Someone's there to just take the phone call, to bounce ideas off, whatever it is. And I mean, the amount of people that that's obviously a sort of the personal connection, but the amount of clients that I speak to that will say, I trust you more than my wife. Yeah, whatever you say, David, that yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's that's what you're relying on. That is it. It's the human, it's the personal connection. And it all comes for me down to trust. I don't think you're ever getting that with a computer personally.
Yeah. I'm conscious I want to get some questions in, so I'm going to speed up a little bit now. So if anybody's got any questions, anything we've said, pop it in the chat. There's a question there that we will come to from Philip in a moment. So in terms of, as you think about wrapping this up, what's the biggest opportunity for accountants in this inevitable AI-driven world that we're living in at the moment? Donna, come to you first.
I think the first opportunity I'd take, if you haven't already got a relationship with your client that's particularly close, perhaps it was at the start, perhaps it petered off, perhaps they got onboarded and just fed into the workflow and you never really got to have those conversations. The biggest opportunity you've got right now is to step forward, to pick up a phone, to speak to a client and be completely open and honest. Yeah, you've probably seen all these adverts about AI and, you might have a few questions and stuff. We're here. Openly ask us. Don't get me wrong. We're not holding you back. We're actually embracing the technology. We're bringing it forward with our clients. We're using it where we can to give us more insights, more efficiencies and stuff, but you've still got us in your corner. And sometimes just picking up the phone, and you might not have done it to that client in 6 months, 6 years, who knows? But they go, thanks. I didn't even think of that. And it can open up a million conversations about, well, actually, now I've got you on the phone. Could I just check this or could I just ask that? And it could lead to a whole new piece of work, or it could just reinforce a relationship, which ultimately saves a client going off somewhere else because they just don't think you care.
Yeah. David, anything to add to that?
I would sort of sum it up as it's going to allow us to clear the monotonous work, take that all off our plates, free up not only the time, but the headspace. I don't know if anyone else feels like that, but to me, having more room in your brain to actually just think. And then I think by virtue of that, we can actually genuinely be transformational in our clients' lives. So we're not just the accountant, we actually then become indispensable. You get rid of my accountant, they're my go-to, they're my right-hand man. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. So I think that's what it will, that's the opportunity. You can transform lives.
Thank you. I think for me is AI is definitely going to impact our profession. There's no doubt about that. But I think we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to shape how it's going to affect our profession. So the decisions we make today, the decisions we make now, are going to influence the way things pan out. And I've spoken to a few people about this recently, and I kind of relate it back to 2009 when we made decisions to do what we did with cloud accounting or online accounting technology, as it was referred to back then. If firms like us had said, no, we're not going to do this, we're going to stick to the way we've always done things, how might our profession have been different? If Xero and others hadn't have got traction through an accounting channel, how might they have changed their method of delivery? And I think we have this opportunity where we can shape how AI is going to influence our profession. But burying our head in the sand and doing nothing is not going to give us that opportunity. So we need to keep tight control over what we do and decisions we make about how we deploy AI, because the focus here isn't going to be the firms that win or the firms that are producing the most reports through Anthropic. That's not the reality. The firms that win are the firms that are building the deepest understanding with their clients. This creates a catalyst in the same way that back in 2011, it was like Dext gave me the opportunity to change how we did bookkeeping, how we engage with our clients. It wasn't the technology was the disruptor. It was the way that we chose to use the technology that created the disruption, created the alternative service model that we adopted in the way we worked with our firms. This is the opportunity that's here for us now. We can choose to use this technology as a catalyst for changing what we do and the impact we have with our clients. So that's really the opportunity for me. I'm going to come to questions. I'm just quickly going to wrap up on a couple of slides here. I've purposely not talked about All in Place. This is an All in Place webinar. I touched on them briefly at the beginning. All in Place is a a platform, an advisory platform, a human-first advisory platform that is intended to help you build this knowledge and understanding, capture the insights of your clients. We have a free plan, so you can sign up for a free plan. If you go to the website allin.place, you'll see that you can start free there with 2 clients. There is a demo client in there, and you have a license for 1 other client. What I would suggest is you don't put a client in there, you put yourself in there. So sign up. It's a free account. It's not a trial. You've got full functionality. You'll see your demo client that will show you what's in there, but use it to go through the process yourself. Capture the information for you as a business owner. If you're a firm owner, then plug it in, play around with the software, come back to us with questions and so on. And the second prompt I mentioned at the beginning, the second webinar we're going to do in this series is with Alexis Kingsbury. Alexis has a fantastic story to tell. If you haven't seen Alexis speak or read the book or looked at his LinkedIn posts, thank you, Donna. Do take a look, but there's a QR code on screen at the moment where you can register for the next webinar, which we're doing on 7th September. We're making sure that school holidays are all done and out the way, but that promises to be a really interesting conversation following on from this, really, in terms of if we accept that the focus here should be on building better understanding of clients, better conversations with clients, how do we develop and retain the advisors we need to do that? Because the skill set's going to be a bit different. So thinking about how we do that, and there's a lot of argument at the moment of discussion that the organization structure is going to become a diamond structure. Whereas at the moment we kind of have pyramid structures with lots of juniors at the bottom doing lots of the work. AI is going to do that. So the middle gets fatter. But if we're bringing people in at the middle, and we haven't been able to train them at the bottom, then how do we make sure they've got the skills that we need to support our clients? So that promises to be a really fascinating conversation. So do join us for that. Q&A. I did see a couple of questions pop up in the Q&A box. So I'm just going to find those now. So Philip asked, agree with the sentiment that clients can't trust a computer, trust is a human interaction? Absolutely. What gives you confidence that our markets, potential customers in that case, feel the same way? There's a bit more in the question, but that's probably the key there. I mean, guys, if you've got any response to that, feel free to kind of dive in here. I think, again, it's about us. I talk about this a lot with clients. I think that clients don't know what they need. I think that's the start point here. And I use an example, and sorry, this doesn't directly answer the question, Philip, but I think it's relevant. I talk to accounting firms all the time and they say, how do you get clients to buy management reports? You don't get clients to buy management reports. You'll never get a client to buy management reports. The way that you will end up delivering management reports to a client is when you understand what they want. So when a client says, I really need to earn some more money out of my business, and you can talk to them about the ways that you can help them get more money out of their business, they will be receptive to your advice. And if your advice happens to be, we need to do management accounts and we need to sit down once a quarter and go through those so you can earn that extra £20,000 a year, that's when you'll get clients buying in to spending more money with you to deliver something that they didn't think they needed because you hadn't had the conversation. So I think we have to accept that and Philip, you've said it there, that you agree that clients can't trust the computer. I just think that they will. So therefore, the only opportunity is for us to do the education. So we should be having conversations with clients, almost empowering them to use AI, but we need to be the custodians of the data quality that they're using. And I think that's the crux to this, is we need to be controlling the conversation. And that needs us to be proactive. It needs us to be having these conversations now, and almost telling clients, look, we want to help them get the best out of AI. But we want them to come to us and say, hey, I said this, what do you think? A few people have said, like, Claude is now the new version of Dave down the pub. We've all heard the Dave down the pub, haven't we? Yeah, my mate Dave said. Now it's my mate Gemini or my mate Claude says. Let's have those conversations. Let's encourage it. Anything to add on that, Donna, David?
I just think you need to, anyone, in Philip's example he says about how actually the younger generations are more trustworthy of it because they've grown up with this at their fingertips. But as you said, it needs scrutiny, and anyone who's ever used AI will notice it will quite happily pat you on the back, tell you your ideas are the best in the world. It will gently nudge you towards perhaps a better direction, but ultimately you're going to win. And it's no real difference if you wanted to Google a question in enough different ways, you could possibly find something that backs up your argument just on the internet. So I think the younger generations are aware that there isn't really scrutiny in the answers it gives. It doesn't really ever say, you're wrong. It just goes, well, you could think of it like that. And it always wants to sort of make the user feel like they are valued, that their opinions are warranted and everything else. So I don't think it'd ever get the accountability or scrutiny that an accountant would give them. So even if they trust it, they're still going to hopefully check it, as long as we stand to our principles and our grounds and tell them sometimes you're not right.
Yeah. There's another question that I think is well worth answering, which is, who is responsible if something fails? Is it code or the human behind it? It's always a human behind it. I've had conversations with ICAW on this. So we need to be really careful in terms of what we do as professional accountants. If you don't have an AI policy, guess what? Get ChatGPT or Claude to write you one. You should have an AI policy that sets out how you're going to use AI, where you're going to use it, how you ensure data confidentiality and all of those kind of things. Just because we've let Claude do it doesn't make it any different. It's no different. If we get, let's work on the basis of it's us as the accountant. If we get something wrong because we used AI, that's no different to we got something wrong because one of our juniors did something wrong. So this is a point. And this is, I think, the real risk. And going back to the stuff Lucy's doing at the moment, it's like, where is the regulation? Because let's focus on the non-represented taxpayers who will, or perhaps will be using AI to file stuff. And as Lucy said, it's probably wrong because it's using probabilistic AI to make decisions. And therefore, it's probably going to be wrong. In some cases, it'll probably be right, but we don't know. And HMRC don't know because they're relying on what they get told. So I think that the challenge, and this is where the big challenge sits, is who is responsible. Because if that taxpayer says, well, I got Claude to tell me, and Claude said this was the right answer, so that's what I relied on. HMRC are not going to say, oh, well, that's okay then. We'll go after Anthropic. That's not going to happen. And we need to make clients aware of this. We need to make the public aware of this. So this is part of the education bit we've got to go. We're almost done, David. So any question for any response to either of those two questions from you before we up?
I think the trust side of things, I think you sort of summed up pretty well, but I think it's getting in now. You've got this is your opportunity at the moment. AI is not widely known about by clients, or not all clients. There's significant numbers that aren't using it, so you need to, I think, sharpen your value proposition, what you provide. It is, you're backed by insurance, you're trained by the ICAW, whatever it is, you need to communicate that stuff that really accountants are pretty bad at historically, explaining their value, demonstrating it. I think get good at that. I think that was the only thing. What was the other one?
If something fails, is it the code or human behind it?
Yeah.
I think we've done that, haven't we? Yeah. Excellent. Thank you both very much. We're going to wrap up because we have run 2 minutes over. My apologies for that. The final thing I'd like to leave you with, we've talked a lot about AI and the impact it's going to have. It's inevitably going to have an impact. I think the key is we've all got access to the same technology. We've all got access to the same AI. So therefore, the firms that are going to win here are those that understand people better than those that don't. I think that's the reality here. So our whole focus now has got to be, how do we get to understand our clients better than anybody else? That's where we get our competitive advantage. That's where we differentiate what we do. And we should absolutely be looking at what can AI do for us and our firms to help us have those better conversations with clients. So thank you all very much for joining us. Huge thank you to Donna and David for taking the time to join me and join the conversation, share their experiences. Do join us in September for the session with Alexis Kingsbury. That promises to be a really interesting follow-up to this. Do sign up for your free account, have a play around with All in Place. because we are really keen to hear from firms about what we can do to facilitate and provide you the frameworks, the systems, the platforms to have these conversations with your clients. So thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you in September. Thanks for joining us. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.